Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the situation across the border in Afghanistan, with news coming in regarding rifts in the Afghan Taliban regime, with certain elements within the regime taking a more traditional approach, while others, of course, taking a more pragmatic one. We're going to be taking a look at what that means, particularly in terms of the impact and effect that creates on society in Afghanistan, and the ways in which, of course, that will then impact the future of the Afghan Taliban regime, the future of the society in Afghanistan, and of course the spillover effect in countries in the region and around the world, of course, very especially Pakistan, that already has, in terms of terrorist threats, the ways in which that impacts Afghanistan and has dealt with that previously. So we're going to be taking a look at what that means in terms of the ways forward and how exactly we're going to go about the situation. The way forward in terms of the impact for the domestic political situation of Afghanistan is also important, particularly in the ways that different tribes will be able to represent themselves or stand up for a particular stance, and whether or not that can actually cause ruckus within the society. Then there's, of course, the impact of certain elements and measures taken by Pakistan, such as the move of the Afghan refugees and illegal foreign immigrants in the country, including Afghan nationals, which of course have been given a certain timeline to go back to their country. That, of course, and the ways that it can possibly impact the situation in Afghanistan or not, and then in the ways that we can move forward in terms of the terrorist and security situation, and how we can look forward for more partners in this regard for a peaceful and stable Afghanistan in a situation where we see that the reassurances that were previously spoken about with reference to the situation prior to the US troop withdrawal have still not been met, and there is conflicting view in terms of how that is actually going to happen. Until then, of course, we know that there is no real sovereign recognition of the Afghan Taliban regime. So how will that then unfold, and what that means in terms of the possibility of instability in Afghanistan and the impact that that creates? That is going to be our focus in the show today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh, Pitafi and Faisal. We've also been joined online by former Ambassador Mr. Baluch. Thank you very much, Baluch, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And I'll start with you with reference to, of course, what we see in Afghanistan. And I want your take in terms of your perspective of the news coming in with reference to potential possible rifts within the Afghan Taliban regime, with certain elements taking a different stance. And I want your take on whether you agree or understand that to be true. And secondly, the way that that can possibly impact the current political and social dynamic of the country.
Thank you, Sana. Basically, we have to look back at the takeover of Kabul by Taliban. The abrupt and disorganized withdrawal of the US troops itself kind of set a stage for a ragtag kind of militia taking over a country. If it was more organized, if it was like a properly done takeover, yes, they did did an okay job in discussing and signing an agreement, Doha Accord. But then its implementation was completely a chaos. So this Taliban regime is a product of a chaos within Afghanistan and among themselves. As we all know, that this Afghan militia which took over, I'm sorry, using the word Afghan militia, that is how they were, Lashkar, whatever you call them. So they were, made up of several elements. They were militia from Kandahar, there was militia from the some other bordering areas. There were also IS elements and other extremists. They all had got together and they kind of had joined hands to take over Kabul. There was no oversight as to see that who are taking over the regime. So now those inherent fault lines are now becoming more visible. The Kandaharis have their own point of view. Haqqanis have their own point of view. Pragmatic faction of the Taliban have different perspective. The fundamentalists those have traditionalists have their own point of view. So I think there is also a conflict of interest among themselves. I'm sure they must be joking among themselves to how to go about. But the major which appears now from us, that there is a major rift between those who want international recognition for the purpose so that the Afghan regime can move forward, Afghanistan can move forward. Because unless they open up to the world, unless the international support comes, which will be obviously, which will be followed by, in fact, that will only follow a recognition by the international community, and that will require a lot of changes as per the Doha agreement. That it has to be a inclusive government, the human rights, the women rights, these have to be ensured. How can they go back and prohibit the girls' education beyond grade 5 in this time and age? Nobody will recognize them. So I think this division is bad for Afghanistan. It's bad for the regional stability. It's bad for the security of the region. In fact, Pakistan is the most worried party in this dynamics. So as we proceed, I think we will come to that, what kind of challenges we have. Yes, Sana.
Right, absolutely. And Faisal, I want your perspective on this too, in terms of the areas, of course, that you mentioned, and the provinces in Afghanistan that are, of course, there in terms of safe havens as well, and in terms of potential increase in terrorist activities. And while we talk about the threat emanating from these places, it is going to be far more concerning if there is instability in the country, and if there is a certain dynamic which leads to any possible humanitarian crisis. And I want your perspective on how true do you think the potential of that happening is, and then especially in terms of the impact that it can create on these terrorist organizations, these safe havens, and the activities emanating from Afghanistan. What can be done in order to prevent that from happening, particularly in such a situation?
Yes, and obviously when we talk about the current Afghan Taliban regime, of course, first of all, they have divisions within them. And I think they started appearing in the early days when we obviously started figuring out that lots of the fresh faces from amongst the Afghan Taliban, they were quite educated faces, and few of them even got educated in the American university itself in Kabul. And obviously elsewhere, wherever they were settled, they were studying, and few of them, of course, they have masters, MPhils, and all of that sort. So there are progressive faces within Afghan Taliban, and if we take the example of the old guns, or people who are majoritarily based from Kandahar side, of course, they are the ones who always believed in Mullah Umar's ideology, and they are the hardliners, they are the more traditional Afghan Talibans. And that is, of course, I'm talking about Akhundzada and his followers, and of course he is joined by obviously Mullah Yaqub as well, who happens to be a son of Mullah Umar. But when we talk about people like Mullah Stanakzai, they are the people who are not considered as the tier 1 leadership of Taliban, but tier 2 and tier 3 leadership. That is, of course, the people who have ages in between 25 to 40 years of age. They are the more enlightened ones who believe in obviously the current circumstances and how to go along with it. They believe in that, of course, we have to somehow connect ourselves with the rest of the world, and the only way to do it through is that there are other Muslim countries as well, like Pakistan, like Turkey, like Qatar, like UAE, Saudi Arabia, where there is, obviously they do emphasize on following the religion, but at the same time in the global scenario, of course, they have allowed the women education. They have allowed even in Saudi Arabia, of course, women can drive as well. In Afghanistan, you can never even think of that, and women are not even allowed to go outside without a mahram, their own mahram. And when it comes to, of course, all of these such examples in which they have been, of course, previously during the time the 20 years of war, they have been to places, and while they were there, of course, they saw that this is the right way of being a Muslim, and of course, being a Muslim, females can go to school as well, and it is in a way good for the healthy society. Of course, somebody would not like his wife or his sister or his mother to be touched by another man to get a treatment for something, or even for the pregnancies as well. So in that case, if the women are not educated, they won't end up being a doctor. So if they don't become a doctor, how would they be getting treated? So in this whole scenario, of course, they are more considerate, they are more progressive, they know how how to improve the agriculture of the country, how to place the new canals, and that is why we have been seeing that they have been working on it day and night. The mega projects we always talk about, these are actually brainchilds of the progressive thought within the Afghan Taliban. But overall, the situation is there is a third one as well, that is entirely the rogue one, which is considered the rogue one, that is the Haqqani network. And Haqqani network is actually encircled around the provinces we always talk about. Of course, Jalalabad, I'll want to mention it here. Of course, Kunnad, Nangarhar, Nuristan, and then Paktika, Paktia, all of these provinces, of course, they have sort of a presence in there, and they are the ones who are, of course, so happy that everything in terms of this fuss is going on, because whatever they want to do, they carry on doing, and they are the ones who are actually facilitating the TTP as well. Then when it comes to other factions within BLA, BLF, Majid Brigade, all of these people, they get facilitated by ranks within Afghan Taliban. So in a way, the upper class, if they are fighting amongst themselves, then the lower class, the lower cadres, of course, they get a free hand to, of course, under the tables do whatever they want to do. So in a way, that is going to be pivotal in terms of the regional security, especially for Pakistan as well, because within the ranks of Afghan Taliban, unless Afghan Taliban, of course, look within themselves, it would straight away remain a security hazard, not only for Afghanistan itself and Afghan people, but of course for Pakistan and all other neighboring countries, including Iran, including Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, all of them, they will be feeling the heat. Why I say this? Because as long as all of these terrorist outfits, including ISIS Khorasan, which not only is a threat to Pakistan, but of course it is a threat to the whole world. Reason being, it is more aligned towards the ideology of a global level, and it's a backyard of the main ISIS, and this is where they get trained, this is where they get all of the illicit trafficking of human trafficking and the drugs trafficking, and through which they make money, and that money ends up getting used in ISIS ideology itself. And they employ people, they employ the rogue elements of the society from both sides of the border, and then they of course use them in different activities on the behest of the another money that actually they get it from our friends on the eastern neighbors, people like eastern neighbors India. They of course utilize that fault line, and overall, unless Taliban sitting in Kabul, be they from Jalalabad, be they from Kabul itself, or be they from Kandahar, if they are not able to scrutinize themselves within their own ranks, then of course it is not going to be settled.
Right. And Farrukh, I want your understanding also in terms of these perspectives, but add to that the ways in which we see the kind of political system that actually exists in Afghanistan, and what that means particularly after the US troop withdrawal and with the Afghan Taliban regime in place, both in terms of the Afghan Taliban regime and the people of Afghanistan. Is there that democratic infrastructure or any political infrastructure, so to speak, in terms of how the society actually is responding to it or knows how to go about the situation? and what they actually need from their own setup, and then of course with the Afghan Taliban regime also in terms of their ability to deliver that.
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question. I think because somebody, I think Faisal actually mentioned there are progressive elements within the Taliban. So the day these Marxist, Leninist among Taliban actually overthrew the system, pray wake me up, because I don't think that is ever going to happen. What we are doing is called paralysis by analysis, right? Because we don't have any leverage, because nobody has any kind of power regarding whatever is happening in Afghanistan. That's why we keep on splitting here. All these elements that were mentioned, Kandhari, Jalalabadi, whatever, right? Fact is that they were, and Haqqanis by the way, they were part of the same movement, and they were fighting, international coalition that was in Afghanistan, along with their sponsored or supported government as well, which was supposed to be a democratic government. And they kept on fighting. At that time, it was claimed that perhaps Pakistan is propping them up. But today, they are attacking Pakistan. They are trying to actually attack your border repeatedly. So what does it tell you? It tells you that they are an organic whole, and they are an organism which is, of course, based on subversion of Islamic core tenets, and that's why they present themselves as holier than the Pope, right? And people actually fall for that shtick. But the fact is that I don't think that they can be actually broken into pieces. Though, if you remember, an ambassador was talking about the day Kabul fell to them, right? If you remember that day, people falling from planes, right? They were the people who could have actually brought about any kind of revolution, any kind of change, and either they died or they left the country, right? With that kind of a situation, what exactly do you have? You have an unsolvable paradox. Why? Because earlier, everybody keeps on thinking that we are in the same timeline, same world, but the world has dramatically shifted. Remember, there was a time when there used to be Twitter, then it was taken over by Elon Musk, and eventually everybody ended up on different platforms, maybe Blue Sky, maybe Threads, maybe Facebook or whatever. There is no Twitter anymore. It might be X. It is what Elon Musk likes, but the world order is similar kind of thing right now. Donald Trump took over the country and he won clearly, right? And the dynamics are changing. Now he says that America is never going to intervene, right? And that actually shows also because he is trying to decommission those elements who actually wanted that kind of invasion or that kind of policy. With that kind of state of affairs, where is the correction? Do you think that Afghanistan, which has burnt hands of at least three powers of the time, Soviet Union, but British Empire before that, and affected even Americans, do you think that anybody is in haste to actually step in and try to correct the order? When the takeover was taking place, and at that time there was a push in certain parts of Afghanistan, and people from Northern Alliance, the only people who had consistently been fighting them, and they were also like Taliban. Most of them had studied in Pakistan. They were driven away from the country. And now in Afghanistan, perhaps Abdullah might be there, Hamid Karzai might be there, but they are also, not presenting any alternative order. So with that kind of state of affairs, I think that people who could have actually changed either left, died, or they are mortally afraid for their life. I don't think there is going to be a correction. And there are so many powers sitting around Afghanistan. I mean, start from Iran and Pakistan, and then in not immediate neighborhood, but India is also a factor. Then see Russia, Central Asia, and then China also. Do you think that now anybody is going to step in and change whatever is happening? Because everybody cut their hands and handed them, gift wrapped and handed them over to Afghan Taliban. At that time, our PM and other people were laughing and dancing and praising whatever was happening. Because of that benightedness, that short-sightedness, we are in a pickle. Now there is only one solution for Pakistan. I keep on saying that harden your border and forget there is anything called Afghanistan. If you keep on worrying about Afghanistan, you are just wasting time because nothing is going to happen. And you don't have any kind of leverage there. Why? You can cut off Afghanistan. Everybody can actually stop funding as well. Afghan Taliban don't mind if their people die. So they will keep on dying. What happens? They are okay because they are alive and they have amassed enough resources to survive despite that. So in this state of affairs, I think all we have been thinking about Afghanistan, and it is not nationalism what I talk about. My only concern is it is pragmatism to realize that Afghanistan has been a blind alley. Every time you have done whatever you could to help them fix themselves, in the end, Pakistan has suffered. And we don't have the bandwidth to actually change the atmospherics according to our interest. We might have played a crucial role in turning the tide against the Soviet Union or Cold War. We might have played a very important role in turning the tide of war and terror. But even then, we were and have been consistently the sole losers in the equation. So please think about your own people, think about your own country, and forget whatever happens in Afghanistan.
Right, Ambassador, I want your perspective on this too, in terms of how, when we talk about what's going on in Afghanistan, we can protect our own country, and not just in terms of the terrorist activities, but also in terms of that being our problem, or that being something that we'll have to deal with in terms of any sort of social change, any humanitarian crisis, also in terms of the political dynamics and the kind of reassurances or actions that Afghanistan takes, just like any other country.
Sana, I normally do not refute any point of view brought in, especially my very learned and dear friend, Mr. Pitafi. But I really would like to say and submit few things what he said. So, one, that we cannot wish away and close our eyes that Afghanistan does not exist for us. No, it's a reality. It's a geostrategic reality. It is a geographic reality. It's an economic reality. It's a security reality, and even ideological reality. The very fact that now we are attacked every second day from that land, how can we forget and insulate and say and wish it away? No, we can't. So I think that luxury we don't have to forget about it. Yes, India can forget about it, Bangladesh can forget about it, Nepal can, but Pakistan cannot. With 1,200 plus border with Afghanistan, with kind of kinship among them, the Pashtun and majority of Pashtun with us, how can we wish away? How can it be possible that there is this some kind of a like 1400-year-old perspective on life being practiced, and with an ambition to even export that back to Pakistan? Well, look at what TTP wants from Pakistan, is to abrogate its constitution, enforce what the Taliban is doing it. Now we can't even dismiss that, oh, there's a few hundred people, but they are enough to create problems for us, to be obstacle in our new journey for economic prosperity. They are actually a big disruptive force, as we have seen that House CPAC, if not been installed, at least it has been slowed down. One of the reasons is this. One of our strategic friend, China, is totally now kind of under pressure, and we are under pressure because of the security threat to the CPAC projects and Chinese people working in Pakistan. And then the first thing is that if there's a lawless land besides your border where elements from all over the world can come and play their games, my God, you cannot forget it. You have to monitor it. You have tried to get your own cards, get your friends, get your alliances, and it is not that that cannot be done. It can be done, Central Asia, but we have not yet developed that regional approach that we have been discussing, and at least I've been always saying that alone Pakistan cannot solve this problem. Afghanistan problem is solvable. It's not as normal. Just that we have not been able to really marshal that diplomatic like diplomatic coalition or alliance of friends and people who are really affected. Iran is affected. Turkmenistan is affected. Azerbaijan is affected. China obviously is affected. And countries beyond that are affected. So I think let's get up. It has been long that any international conference has taken place on the security threats emanating from Afghanistan. Why not to call for that? Okay, fine. Start with the UN. Get some these ambassadors to have a special meeting to discuss this threat there and give our perspective, give the evidence, give the what is happening on ground and what needs to be done. And of course, there is always solution to that. And also now, since we have this news coming that there is at least a critical mass of people who want some kind of a normalcy in the Afghan dispensation or Afghan society, so to say. Forget about the government. Government is a big objective. So I think the world cannot abandon Afghanistan. We can, especially not Pakistan, cannot abandon Afghanistan. We have to be involved. We have to make sure that all avenues are, if it needs kinetic, let it be kinetic, but it has to be with the help of the friends. But I think before the kinetic, start with your diplomatic and political means, and if it fails, then that is your then creativity to get that kinetic alliances to defeat these forces of medieval times, because they're affecting our society, they're affecting our economic development, even the very security of our country. So I think we cannot forget about it. We have to deal with it and deal it with a firm hand. Yes, Sana.
Absolutely, Ambassador Saab. But in terms of the options that we have and in terms of what that means in terms of actual action, I want you to help us understand how firmly we can actually deal with it, because in a lot of ways there has been a diplomatic engagement and you keep on emphasizing the need for that as well. But if that fails, what options does Pakistan have? And secondly, the measures of the ways in which we are prioritizing Pakistan and its citizen security, particularly in terms of measures such as that of the illegal foreign nationals within the country, including Afghans as well, who have been given a certain deadline to go back to their country. I want your take on how that also impacts the current situation between both the countries and whether or not that will achieve this purpose.
Yes, no, that's a problem. We have the whole set of problems that that we have to deal with. If the situation does not improve in Afghanistan, how do we expect these people to go back to Afghanistan? Even if they go back, they'll stay for some time and trickle back. So I don't know really. To be very frank, with the current situation in Afghanistan, the intestine competition.
But sir, if you can help me understand, these are illegal foreign nationals within the country who have been given time to process their documents and who have been given a lot of deadlines with regards to that. So, and this is of course a country who has hosted these refugees for decades.
Yes, I think in our earlier program I had said that let the UN take the responsibility, let the international community take the responsibility. After all, it is not our doing. It is doing what has happened to Afghanistan, the kind of condition it is. So we on the Afghan side, we should have some kind of tented village for these people as they have the refugee camps. So I think we have to emphasize the responsibility that the UN should take, the responsibility other forces should take who are responsible for the condition of Afghanistan. Yes, Anna.
Right. Faisal, with reference to the ways in we can actually look towards international bodies such as the UN for these matters, we've seen even in much larger issues or serious conflicts as well, that there has been redundancy, and we've seen that within the region. Pakistan, of course, experiences that with regards to the issue of Kashmir as well. But I want your perspective in terms of when we talk about the options that Pakistan has. We have engaged diplomatically, and we have, of course, initiated a lot of such processes, but there hasn't been real success, and particularly in terms of what can possibly be done on this front. If it doesn't work, and if there isn't the kind of response that one wants, then what does Pakistan do in that regard?
Yeah, obviously, Sana, when it comes to Afghanistan, the kind of policies Pakistan was pursuing, of course, of talks as well, and especially the Afghan or Pashtun kind of talks when it comes to, of course, sending in jirgas. And I think sending a jirga is a very positive factor, and that affects a lot as well when it comes to, of course, talking with Taliban and talking with the other side of the Pashtuns. But at the same time, I think I would fully agree with Ambassador Baluch when he said that at the same time we should not be forgetting the ultimate responsibility of our institutions, of our security institutions, I must say, and that is, of course, safeguarding Pakistan's citizens, and at the same time, with the talks, with the diplomatic ways that we have been, of course, pursuing, we have to carry on busting the hideouts of the terrorists within Afghanistan. Time and again, with that we have highlighted that last year there were 3 months, especially of course March, April and December, where we saw that Pakistan busted the hideouts of the terrorists from where the terror was originating and being facilitated and financed as well. So in that context, I must say that our security institutions, they have to put a foot down on that side as well. But at the same time, our diplomatic mission, it has to ensure that it keeps on telling Afghan Taliban that this menace, which is actually brewing and erupting from within their own borders, that is actually affecting Pakistan, and eventually it has a very negative effect on Afghanistan itself, and that is being done to, of course, not only secure Pakistan, but somehow giving a favor to Afghan Taliban as well, because we shouldn't be forgetting that even Afghanistan, within Kabul, there were of course suicide attacks taking place. ISIS Khorasan is there, which is active, and that is of course carrying out all of these activities. One of the ministers of Afghan Taliban as well, he was assassinated by one of the factions of ISIS Khorasan. So when it comes to overall situation, of course Pakistan has to keep on reminding Afghan Taliban that that is in the greater good of the whole region, especially Pakistan and Afghanistan, and they need to, of course, fulfill their responsibility of making sure that their Afghanistan is secure for rest of the world, including Pakistan. And if they are failing to do that, then of course Pakistan would be extending an helping hand in terms of busting the hideouts wherever they are found. So to me, I think having this strategy, at the same time, of course, let the food items go in, never stop that, let the trade go in as well to Afghanistan, because of course Pakistan is a sort of lifeline for Afghanistan when it comes to, of course, if Pakistan's import and export, trade with Pakistan does not exist for Afghanistan, then I believe Afghanistan won't have enough to survive for a month. I mean, God gives them more, but of course Pakistan's trade with Afghanistan is a huge factor that makes a difference out there. We should carry on doing that for the humanitarian cause, and at the same time Pakistan should keep on talking to, of course, United Nations and all of the relevant corridors of
Right.
these refugees. Of course, Pakistan should do what is required to do, because this is Pakistan and Pakistan is being run by a constitution, and if constitution does not allow, and if constitution has the directions to give to Pakistan to of course send them back, as Afghanistan is safe and secure for them. So for Afghan nationals, it is good to go back, but if there are some who are still bothered about it, then of course we need to talk to United Nations, and United Nations must ensure that of course they are the ones who are actually paying for it, because when it comes to Pakistan's responsibility, Pakistan has been of course carrying out and delivering this responsibility for almost 5 decades, more than 4 decades, and Pakistan had never said anything about it. But now of course Pakistan has to do that as well, at the same time talks, and then keep on bombing the places from where the terrorism is originating.
And Farrukh, I want your take on this, because does her strategy work?
I am going to actually talk about the strategy also.
Yeah.
But before that, I just want to clarify what Ambassador Saab was saying. I think he misunderstood me. When I was rhetorically saying that forget what is happening in Afghanistan, I did not mean you wish them away. I meant only that you cut your losses and realize that there are certain problems you cannot fix. And after that, since I said that Pakistan should harden its border, you have to realize, Sana, what my lived experience has been. I was, I think, 3 years old when Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. And since then, what has been happening? Throughout my life, we have been told that Afghan Jihad was, so important, because we had to actually take care of our independence, and then we had this bleeding heart that we have to take care of Afghanistan as well. Of course, we claim that monies are coming. Wherever those monies went, I don't know, right? Then Afghanistan remained the same riddle, and after that, Afghan Taliban actually came to power. But after that, also 9/11 happens once again. My generation, Generation X, was destroyed by Afghan Jihad, obsession over whatever was happening in Afghanistan. Then millennials, their lives were destroyed because again bleeding hearts were actually trying to install democracy in Afghanistan. And now we are the reformers, and now we risk destroying another generation, the generation of my daughters, my children, right? Gen Z. And then if we keep on doing that, perhaps maybe we will be able to destroy further generations, and there's a lot of hope regarding that as well. Regarding our charity or our charitable heart, why not actually do something constructive? We have tried doing whatever we could with Afghanistan. Afghanistan doesn't have one neighbor, there are 18 other neighbors, right? And Iran also has access to oceans. Iran is not landlocked. Let us take all our, charity and charitable causes and go to Africa, where people are actually dying at this moment. Why not actually do something for Sudan if you want to, if you have such love in your heart? My only humble submission is, and I am going to actually try to contain my anger over this subject by actually quoting one poem by Anam Rashid, and that is called Hasan Kuza Gar. I'm not even going to translate it. Hasan Kuza Gar hosh mein aa, Hasan apne veeran ghar par nazar kar, bachon ke tandoor kyun kar bharenge, Hasan e mohabbat ke mare mohabbat amiron ki bazi, Hasan apne deewaro dar par nazar kar. Think about your own country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ambassador Saab, anything you want to add before we conclude?
Yeah, I think we should, as a nation, shouldn't be, and I entirely agree with him, with Mr. Pitafi, that we should not make the future of our future generations to this intractable problems. Yes, we have to insulate our development, we have to insulate our security from this issue, but at the same time, I think we have to get rest of the world to come together and make them understand that how much is their responsibility, that responsibility they have to take it, and we should do our bit. And I am with a note of hope that hopefully Afghanistan would find some light in their path towards civilization, towards democracy. That may be a distant dream, but at least a normal polity that we will see, and that it should stop being the breeding ground for terrorism. That's my prayer.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Saab, for joining us and being a part of the debate. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for being part of this show as always. That's all that we have. We'll now see you tomorrow.